Hello, everyone. Hello, Antoine.
Good afternoon, Yannig.
How are you?
Very well, and you?
I'm fine. Hello, everyone who attends this webinar, which we are quite excited about. It's not a webinar; it's more of a masterclass. It's supposed to be a roundtable format or an interactive format for anyone who is interested to discover what consent management is, and especially management for gaming, which is a very it's not a new topic, but it's a very important topic. But we have seen at Didomi that it's a topic that has been underinvested by a lot of technology players, including players in the privacy and consent space, which is why Didomi has released its Unity SDK, Unity compatible SDK, and we are here today to present you what consent management is, why consent management is important, how it plays into regulations like CCPA, GDPR, and others, because they are not the only ones, and how you as a game developer or game publisher or DPO at a game organization can use consent management, which is now for the first time available for the Unity environment, for the Unity game engine. And Didomi was the first on the market to announce this, which is why we are here. Do you have anything else to add, Antoine?
No. Welcome, everyone, and I'm very happy to see so many people on this webinar. We did not imagine that Unity was such a big thing, a hot topic for everyone at the time.
We obviously did have quite some weak signals because a lot of clients and people who were not clients yet expressed interest by telling us that if we had Unity and Unity SDK, they would be interested. But with just our web app and our web SDK and AMP format, which are the technologies that we already support, they were not converted yet. And we're happy to finally announce the launch of our Unity SDK. Let's delve right into it. There we go. I want to start by introducing the session here. This is the first of 4 masterclasses, which will be held on every Monday evening of the month of July, now being the first one. So today we're going to talk about why managing user consent is important for compliant monetization. Next week, our DPO Charlotte and our CTO Jawad will present you the implementation and setup of Didomi's Unity SDK in your game. How do you implement it in your app? The week after, in 2 weeks, we will have a session about how to optimize user consent rates, because it is obviously a very important topic for every single game developer out there and game marketer also out there, to be able to optimize consent rate if consent is closely linked with monetization. And indeed it is. And we have the tools for that. And the last one will be the last Monday of the month of July, in which I think it's you, Antoine, again, and then Romain, our CEO, if I'm not wrong, will talk about how to increase the ROI, the return on investment of consented monetization with a consent management platform like Didomi's, available on Unity.
That's right.
Amazing. Now, what's a CMP? A CMP is a consent management platform. The consent management space is a subspace of the privacy management space, in which Didomi is a European leader. Consent management platform is the technological solution that helps a publisher like the ones we will present just after, but also gaming developers, if you want, and which is why we're here today, to manage users' consent and in increasingly stringent privacy regulations across the globe, not only in Europe, but also in California, in the US, and in many other countries. Game developers are increasingly aware of the importance of compliant data access, but also compliant data usage. And for this, many people, especially in the publishing space today, use CMPs, consent management platforms. Now, our CMP, which is one of the leading CMPs technologically speaking, and also in terms of market presence out there, is today available on the web. We will show you a couple of examples just after, but also as for mobile SDKs, for mobile apps, and in accelerated mobile pages. It can be configured, used, which means customized, A/B tested, etc., on what we call the Didomi console. It is used by major brands and publishers. I will get back to this, or I think it is you, Antoine, who will get back to this in the next couple of slides. So we do have a number of brands already, and it's available today in 27 languages. So whether you're a game developer in Spain or in France or in the US or in Germany, you can use Didomi CMP to better manage consent in your game. Now, this is what a consent management platform should not do. This is one of our competitors who was used this way by the PC Gamer website by then. Now, if you look at the URL, it is an example that I found on Reddit by a user whose name I will not mention here in 2014. So it's quite a number of 6 years back. We have been looking up this platform with this particular CMP again with Antoine, and it's, thank God, not configured this way anymore. But a CMP should not be this. It should not be a blocking pop-up window on your website in which you either have the choice to be, after being addressed quite aggressively here, either have the choice to go back or to leave, which is basically to not do much. Now, there is some regulation that says cookie walls are okay, because this is basically a cookie wall. There is some regulation that says, especially in France, cookie walls are not okay. Generally, what you want to do is, especially if you're a game developer, you will not want to drive users away like this. So this is what a consent management can do, but should not do. This is here what a consent management platform should do. Now, again, this is a desktop version. On GamerGen here, gamergen.com, it's Didomi solution that is CMP that is implemented. It is a message, clear and respectful message in which the publisher, gamergen.com, again, here on this example, is warning users that privacy is important to them and that they can either agree to their cookie policy and close it, or learn more about it. Of course, they will also be able to refuse it, as I show on the next slide, which is this one here. Once the person has clicked on find out more, which was it again? No, learn more, sorry. You go to this, you come to this second level screen, or second level window, and as you can see on the bottom, privacy management by Didomi. It's our logo down there, and this is the level of customization of choice that the transparency and consent framework, which is the industry standard for good consent management, this is the level of choice that a user should have. Now, on gamergen.com, it's well done. On many apps, especially gaming apps, as we will see just after, it is less well done, and this is why we're here. But in a couple of words, this is what a consent management platform does on the front, which is the user interface. There are a lot of things that a consent management platform can do on the back end, as we said in the Didomi console, and you as a gaming developer are here to learn about this. Now, Antoine, over to you.
Yeah, exactly. Just before starting, to see how we can improve the compliance with GDPR in the gaming industry, a few words about Didomi. We launched a solution dedicated to publishers almost 2 years ago, and within 2 years, we became the leading consent management platform in Europe. Now, our different SDK are deployed on more than 90K websites and apps. It means that every month, we're gonna collect or read more than 40 billion consents, and we're gonna collect the consent for more than 2 billion devices every quarter. So it means that we are the most used solution in Europe, and we are very proud of that. Next slide, please. As I told you, initially we started to work with the publishing industry, and we had it was a kind of a bet, in fact. We had the idea to offer the most advanced solution for publishers because that's a really strategic tool for them, because it's going to impact the direct revenue. And it was with the idea that if we are able to provide them with the most advanced solution, no other industry will we don't get any problem with the other industries. So we became the leading CMP in Europe for publishers, and now we are starting to work with more and more industries, such as e-merchant, B2B platforms, but also specific apps, gaming industry, industry as well, transportation. So we are now working with all kinds of companies, small, medium, and large. So now, let's have a look at what is required with the GDPR. So on this slide, we're gonna see why collecting consent is not an option, of course. And everything started in 2002 with the ePrivacy directive. It was really the first introduction on what is a user consent and why you need a consent to use its own data. Of course, it was it was really the basics at the time. And 16 years later, the GDPR applied and gave us much more details on what you can do with very precise definition on what is a consent and how you can collect it to be considered as valid. And this is something written in GDPR. The consent have to must answer to 4 essential criteria. The first one, it is that the consent needs to be freely given. The second one, it is that the consent needs to be informed, but also unequivocal and specific. As we're gonna see in the next slides, these are really important if you really want to use a valid consent and that your partners can use the data that you're gonna collect. Oh, can we move on the next slide, please?
This one.
Yeah, perfect. So on this slide, you're seeing a basic monetization ecosystem. Everything starts with the editor, the game publisher, that is considered every time as the data controller. And the data controller have to collect the consent. If the game publisher want to earn money with the inventory and the audience of the app, you have to use an ad exchange that can be considered as a co-data controller or data processor, depending on the case. To avoid a possible fine, the data control, most of the time, the ad exchange gonna ensure that the consent have been collected by the game publisher. So for that, they are using more and more standard consent framework, such as the transparency and consent framework, for example. And on the other side, you're gonna see brands and agencies who are looking for advertising and inventories, but in the law, they have to ensure that all the data that they are going to use have been collected, consent have been collected before everything. So that's really useful for them to be able to get a proof and to be able to share the proof into the different partners in the ecosystems. So that's something that is really crucial, and that's why a solution is really useful for that. On this slide, we're going to see the different recommendations. In fact, the different data protection authorities have to apply the GDPR. That is a very common text for all the European Union. But some of the national data protection authorities can add their own directive. For example, in France, the lifetime of the consent is very specific and going to be limited to 6 months. Or another French directive by the CNIL is that the editor can offer the possibility to delay the consent decision. So for all those reasons, we think that it's going to be more and more complex for an editor to create its own solution, because he will have to adapt it to all the different countries on which he gets some users. So for that, we think that the app editor is going to need to work with reliable solution for consent management.
Thank you, Antoine. Now, the previous slide presents a couple of guidelines in terms of privacy management for cookies, right? I do, everyone in the ecosystem, especially in the app development and gaming development ecosystem, has been a little bit baffled and stunned a couple of days ago, even, when Apple announced some of their latest changes to iOS 14, one of which is the kind of a cookie, it's not a cookie, sorry, but a kind of a consent management solution in its mandatory for apps who want to access data of the user. Now, this on the left here, you see an illustration that has been used by Tim Cook when he presented this privacy enhancement to in the Worldwide Developer Conference. We don't know yet if it will exactly look like this. It may look differently. We have in France here, we have had a number of industry players who have asked Tim Cook directly and Apple whether this would be the way it would be displayed. If it was this way, what are the back office solutions? Can an app developer try to test different messages, different formats? Is it possible for them to be to change the moment in which this consent, in a way, so to speak, will be asked. So there are a lot of uncertainties yet about this announcement. However, what it shows is that change is not coming only from DPAs anymore, data protection authorities. The French DPA is the CNIL. The Irish DPA is the Data Protection Commission, if I'm not wrong, the ICO in the UK. So change will not come only from those players, but company players and industry players like Apple and probably Google very soon. That's the way the market sees it, will enable or will introduce their own privacy centric solutions, which means that app publishers cannot ignore the privacy, I won't call it the problem, but the privacy subject anymore. When GDPR was coming into force in 2018, a lot of articles have been written. We will see some of them afterwards in the resources section of this masterclass. Since then, not a lot has been done actually within the gaming ecosystem. The monetization players have tried to make sure consent has been collected. Gaming developers have not cared much, to be honest. Part of the reason is that they had very little independent technological solutions like the one Didomi proposes, because a lot of the consent management was proposed by people who also take care of monetization, which is not very objective, which is not very unbiased. Anyway, change does not come anymore from only Citizen, who were the first to move, represented by DPAs, data protection authorities, but now private companies like Apple and probably Google soon will also introduce privacy enhancing features, and this is only a start. It is an unclear start. We don't know exactly how it will look in the future, and app developers themselves don't know. A lot of people who work on monetization and attribution, like analytics and all the monetization and user acquisition companies, are trying to see where this will go, but it will definitely go in a direction that app publishers should be aware of, and gaming app publishers as more importantly. Now, I just wanted to show a couple of consequences of this. One of the consequences here is a consequence that we already help clients work with for the last couple of years, which is there will be a lot more choice and control for users in web and app. On here on the left, you see that in France, for example, a website publisher has to feature the refuse and accept buttons with the same font size, color, etc. There has to be perfect symmetry. Now, this is very good for users because they are now not screwed anymore by a misleading message that says that you can keep using the website, which pretty much means that you accept, even though maybe you didn't understand it this way. So consequence number one is that you will have to give your gaming users, your gamers, much more choice and control, and this is something that might be difficult for some, but it is a fact. The second consequence here is that something that we have also been working on with our clients quite a lot is how to optimize consent rates. If you have to ask your users the question, how are you going to optimize people's ability or influence, let's say, people's ability to say yes? Is it about explaining more? Is it about explaining yes? Is it about choosing the moment at which you will ask the question early on in the gaming, in the acquisition, the funnel, or late? Will it be set by regulation? There are a lot of things that will actually impact consent rates, and we are here to help you. And this masterclass is one of the masterclasses that are within the four, is supposed to help you understand this issue and try to get a hold of how to optimize consent rates, because consent rates will impact your game's monetization. And this is, I'm coming to the third consequence. You will need, exactly as you do in user acquisition, with your cohort analysis, with everything you do in terms of user acquisition as of today, you or your fellow marketing colleagues and advertising colleagues within your gaming studios will have to find ways to optimize consent. And we're not talking about, you will have to find ways to A/B test, for example, and optimize people's consent rates. So it's not about acquisition. It will be consent to your tracking, to your consent banners, because people telling you, yes, I am okay to be to share my data with you. The game publisher will be able to not only share data that you can monetize, but also data that will give you visibility on his or her app's usage. If that person does not consent, you will end up blind of this particular user's data. So it is very important for you to know that consent collection will be necessarily optimized in the future. Now, what are the risks? I think this one was on you, Antoine. What does a game publisher risk if he or she does not respect this need to ask someone consent about to use their data?
Yeah, thank you, Yannig. We identify two main risks for editors who do not respect GDPR. The first one is a fine. The fine can be significant because the fine can reach up to 4% of the global company's turnover. And the fine is not limited to the app editor. If, for example, a vendor or partner who is helping the company for monetization is using data without consent, the partner can be considered as co-liable and can share the fine with the app editor. But for us, that's not the main risk. The main risk is a lack of revenue for the app editor. And because of partners and brands not looking only with audience with the consent, they're gonna ask to the app editor to offer a real proof that the consent have been effectively collected. And if the app editor is not able to provide it, the partner or the brand gonna consider that the inventory is in opt-out. So the revenue gonna be divided by almost 2 for the editor. I'm gonna briefly talk about several cases that happened in the last years. Someone quite recent that happened in October last year was about Planet 49, a German company. It was a German gaming company in the web. The Court of Justice of the European Union has considered that all the consents collected by Planet 49 were invalid because the Planet 49 was using pre-tick checkboxes, and so the consent cannot be considered as explicit. So all the consents of the company had to be deleted. It was almost the same for Vectory, SingleSpot, and Timo, but they were working a bit differently. All those companies were tech companies specialized in geolocalized in-app data. So, I mean, they were collecting data based on geolocation, and they were enriching, they were creating specific segments for monetization, advertising, etc. And the French CNIL, so the French Data Protection Authority, has considered that the consent was not collected in a valid way, that was not explicit enough. So all those companies have to delete all their bases. So it was a huge problem for all those companies, of course.
Thank you, Antoine. And some game developers we talked to said, and this is a reality, they told us, I prefer to earn $1 million and risking a fine rather than and then maybe down the road pay €100,000 fine, and that will come in like 2 or 3 years because the CNIL is so slow finding me. And by the way, no one has ever been fined on in gaming industry. That's a reality. This is how a lot of people think today. We think that this is not future-proof. Cookies are part of the priorities of the CNIL's control priorities for 2020 before COVID came along. And there is something else that you have to think about when you think about this line of thinking, is that there is a massive image loss that can affect you if you don't respect those. So the fine is not only about the company turnover, but also about having image problems or the CNIL or anyone else asking you to stop operating. Now, as of today, it is true that no one has been fined this way, but we think that it's only a matter of time, and we actually hope that it's only a matter of time that that rogue game developers will start to be fined because they don't have right data privacy practices. Now, as of today, this is not something that we can put in front of you because it hasn't happened as of today. However, what we can do is that we can show you a couple of implementation examples that we think are not valid, and it's not only us. Now, we are not a legal, we are not a legal advisor. We're a tech company, but our experience shows us, and our interpretation of the different texts shows us, including the work with our clients, that some of the things are probably acceptable, others not really. And we have been working with a number of publishers and brands also, by the way. Maybe Antoine, you can tell me what you think about this privacy. This is a privacy terms update banner. So it's not a consent banner necessarily that you have at the beginning of the game. But what do you think about this one from King Games?
On this banner, the good thing is that you can directly access to the privacy policy directly by clicking on a link. So that's the first good point. The problem is that you cannot consider that's a valid consent because the consent is not freely given. I mean, the user don't get any other choice than accept. And the user cannot give a specific consent. I mean, he can accept everything or nothing. You don't get any other choice. So for me, that's absolutely non-compliant banner.
Okay. Thank you, Antoine. You mean that is for probably enough for a privacy update, terms and conditions privacy update, but not as a way to gather user consent for monetization or any other usage of its data, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Antoine. What about this one? For the ones who don't speak French here, we are a French company, so we have taken a couple of French examples that we found. This is a similar consent, let's call it consent banner, which probably comes early on in the user's onboarding journey, because the text on top says "Prêt à jouer," which means "Are you ready to play?" And below the text basically says that if you accept and if you're ready to play, then you are automatically accepting the app's privacy policy and terms and TNC's terms and conditions. So what about this one, Antoine?
Yeah. For me, this one is quite similar to the first one. I mean, the user can access to the terms of service and the privacy policy, but there is no real choice, in fact, for the user. He can accept or nothing else. So I think this banner, you are right when you say that this banner should display when you open the app for the first time. But in this case, also that's not compliant implementation, as this is not a real choice for the user. So okay. For me, that's not good.
Thank you, Antoine. This one is a slightly richer and more, I wouldn't say complex, but richer example. Actually, we have two different examples here. On the left, again in French, we have a pop-up that says, "Are you open to improve your experience?" This is Sonic-2, Sonic Boom. And they say in the text that the app works with ads. And in order to be able to do better personalized ads, the gaming publisher, the person, or the publisher is collecting or using personal data from that person, from the player. Do you want you as a user? Now the question is actually, do you want to improve your experience? Yes or no? And in the middle, the text that it's about personalized ads. This is the one on the left. And on the right, it says how we manage your data. And it basically says that the data that is being used is analytics data, but also user data and personal data with links to the privacy policy as well as the TNCs with a single acceptance button. So I guess for the one on the right, Antoine, you have the same conclusion than the ones that you said before. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. And what do you think about the one on the left?
The one on the left is much better because there is a real choice. So you get a yes and no button that are really, really close. You also get some information about the purpose. Why is Sonic gonna process the data? That's for personalized ad. So that's a very, very good point. The only thing that is missing for me on this banner, it is that you don't get enough information about who gonna process the data. That's always good to give more information, and that is required by the law to give information on the vendor. For example, I'm gonna use this ad server, this ad exchange solution to serve personalized ad, and this is for me the only thing that is missing.
Okay, thank you, Antoine. Now, what about this one, which is, I remember an example, again in French, from The Sims. This is actually a screenshot of a desktop version. This is not on an app. I just reduced it in size so that it's better more readable. I remember that there was an age gate before this one, so I won't talk about the age gate here because the age gate is a different matter, and there's an entire piece of literature and expertise and legal to be rolled out about the age gate. We are talking about personal data here of an authorized user, let's say a person who is more than 18 or 21, and that pop-up says that there is a personalized advertising served by third-party people within this game. And it also says that they collaborate with partners to be able to display personal ads. If it's deactivated, you will still see the advertisements, sorry, but they will be probably less relevant, yes or no. Now this is the pop-up on the top, and then below there is probably something about TNCs, but I don't quite remember. I just want to focus on this specific pop-up here.
This one is quite similar to the Sonic banner. This, you get a real choice, so that's a very good point. Once again, the thing that is missing, it is that the consent cannot be considered as really informed, as the user don't know to who gonna get an access to the personal data. So that's a link to the vendor list or the more detail on the data that is processed can be a very good solution for that.
So do you mean that every single player of this game is supposed to have access to the entire list of partners that this developer works with, so that they can accept or refuse? Is that what you say?
Exactly, yeah. Normally, if you want to consider that a consent is informed, it means that the user know for which purpose you're gonna collect the personal data and which vendor is gonna get an access to it. A minimum to the first level of vendors.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to this one here. Améliorer votre expérience, improve your experience. We always look for ways to improve your game's experience, it says the text, and it basically says the same thing that what we had before. Pour en savoir plus, veuillez consulter notre politique de confidentialité, meaning to know more about this, please look at our privacy policy. And here, though, we have refuse and accept. How come this would be listed as non-compliant? I guess because the same reason than what you said before.
Exactly, yeah. But you also get the really a good symmetry between the two different buttons, accept and refuse. We can see that the app editors don't want to show the refusal buttons. So that's a very, very good point. But once again, there is a lack of information for the user.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question here that you can see on screen. I just discovered this feature a couple of weeks ago from Livestorm. I like it. Here's a question. Will your CMP SDK allow us to keep using our own optimized user interface, to gather consent and feed through an API with the user consents that we are collecting? Sorry. So how much can we, given on how much you work, Antoine, with publishers and people and brands who have similar problematics or similar issues, how can a publisher include this particular consent notice, for example, in either the onboarding process or later on? Please tell us a little bit more about it.
That's a very interesting question. We thought about that when we created the solution, and that's why we decided to offer two different options to our customer. The first one is to use our standard SDK with preseted banner. The advantage is that you're going to get a banner that will be deployed very fast, and you're going to get something really responsive. On the other end, you have another solution. You can use the API to create your own user interface, and like that, the idea is to offer a banner that is really sticky with the experience that you want to offer to your users. And because if you really think about that, collecting a consent is really the first step of a customer relationship. So the idea is to offer something that really sticks to your brand image and the offer that you want to offer. So for that, you can use the API and work on your own interface. Yeah, that's something that you can do.
Thank you, Antoine. Let us move on. And for anyone who else has other questions, about the product or anything else unrelated to Didomi's product, we're here to help you understand consent better. Please don't hesitate. Here are some good implementation examples. Sorry, again, we're not here to say that they're compliant or not, even though the text says it. Says compliant at some times, but we want to show what needs to be done ideally to be able to gather good consent. So here's the first layer. This is on you, Antoine. You wanted to explain what a first and a second layer consent notice is supposed to do.
Exactly, yeah. Those two layers are very, very similar and gonna do exactly the same. What is really interesting on this one is that in the text, you're gonna see the different purpose of the data processing. Why are we collecting personal data? You also get a direct access to the list of partners that can get an access to the data, of course. So the user can directly click on agree and close, or he can click on the learn more button to get more information on the purposes and the vendor list. Can you move on to the next slide? I would like to show the second layer.
Sir, yes, sir.
Thank you. And when you click on learn more, you're gonna get more information about the different purposes, and you get a very granular choice. I mean, the user is correctly informed about why you're collecting its data. He can accept independently each purpose or each vendor, and this is what is required by the law. There is no pre-ticked checkboxes, so that's something really crucial if you want to get compliant consent, a valid consent, sorry. And the user can directly agree to all or disagree to all. So that's something really important if you want to comply with the law.
So this means that we are not able to, you are supposed as a game developer to give someone control to accept or block everything with one single click.
Exactly. That's something that is required. And another one of the criteria of a good consent is that the consent need to be specific. It can be specific for a purpose, but also for a partner, a vendor. So, okay. For example, in any case, I can click on view all partners. I will accept all the different partners, but I'm absolutely anti Facebook, so I can really opt out to only Facebook if I really want to do it.
Okay, that sounds a little bit burdensome, but if that's what the law says. Now we have been, the recommendations, at least here in France, our technology allows to comply with this, but also with much less stringent regulations that might have other definitions of consent and other types of granularities. Now here's okay, we say compliant, but we don't know exactly what this consent notice here does. However, when we looked at it and we saw it, we thought it was a very good example of a compliant looking consent notice. Could you tell me or tell us and tell the rest of the people why you thought this was something that we found to be a good consent notice, Antoine?
Yeah, for me that's fine because you get a good level of information. I mean, you can directly access to the privacy policy, but also to the terms of service. If you want, you can decide to delete the data. You can also ask to see your data. I mean, what personal data is collected. And you can directly click on the change consent status button to opt in or opt out. So for me, that's a very good implementation. You even get the little cross that can be used to delay the consent collection. But be careful, clicking on the cross cannot be considered as a valid consent. That is absolutely forbidden.
And would you, with Didomi or another solution, be able to, for example, someone clicks on the cross here and closes this pop-up? Does it mean that can you, as a game developer, control whether you're going to ask that person again in, I don't know, 2 days, 3 months, or 6 months, or a year, or an hour?
Exactly. That's something that you can really set up directly into the Didomi console. So that's very easy and fast to do. But you need to know that in any case, you need to be the rules need to be the same for opt-in and opt-out. I mean, you can recollect an opt-in if the user did not get it or gave an opt-out, but you need to respect the exact same period of time if the user gave an opt-in. So that's a kind of a risk that you can take.
Okay. Thank you, Antoine. What about this one here that we saw? This is Bandai Namco Entertainment. This looks like the Dragon Ball Z here. What about this implementation?
For me, this one is quite good, as you can freely accept and refuse. Maybe a bit more of information can be appreciated, but you can directly access to the privacy policies and the terms and conditions, so that you get a good level of information. If you click on the link, you can freely accept, freely refuse. So for me, that's fine. Yeah.
As long as you have granularity in the partners that are used afterwards, right?
Yeah, if you go on the privacy policy, you're going to get more information, but maybe the only thing that is missing into this implementation is a bit more information about the purpose and which data are going to be processed directly into the first layer.
It's true. It's probably compliant in terms of may or may not be compliant, but it does look compliant in terms of usage and consent notice. But it's not very clear for a user, especially if it's a young person playing this game, what is actually being gathered in terms of data and how this data is going to be used.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I think, and we both think, Antoine, this is something that we have a firm conviction on. That a lot of publishers, but game publishers, but also brands, and news publishers and others have a long way to go to improve clarity of consent notices. This is something that a lot of people. There is a massive innovation potential here to be able to first inform users better and, if possible, in a better way than this year, even though it looks good. But also to be able to optimize with different messages, different consent rates, and the consent rate of different users here, the users of your app. So this is something that we're calling the community here, especially the gaming community, for creativity and for contribution. If you can do better than brands and publishers who have not been always very, very creative in the way these consent notices are displayed, then please go ahead. If our API can be used or to help along this route, we'd be very happy. Maybe you can develop your own solutions in-house. Now we have a little bit of experience about in-house solutions with our clients, and some of them work very well. Some of them are very, very heavy to maintain. Anyway, there's a lot to be done here in terms of being more clearer for users, because this type of message, even though it looks compliant, it looks free because you can refuse. It does, if you have access to all the data, you are informed. It's unequivocal because you can refuse or accept, and it's specific. There is a lot of improvement that can still be. There's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something about this one here, or should we go to resources to end the session?
Maybe to give a first conclusion on what is compliant or non-compliant. I think this is not just a question of law. That's really a question of vision of the company. The gaming industry should not forget that she's living because of the users. And for me, I think the first thing is to really respect the user rights, because the companies are living because of them. So of course, some companies can still win 5, 6, 10 months before implementing a consent management solution. But in any case, that's not something that will last several years. I think all the companies should really consider that respecting the user rights as something from their core business and the vision of the strategy for me.
Thank you, Antoine. Now here's a couple of, for all of you who are a little bit curious, some of them are fairly old, which is 2 or 3 years ago. Some of them are very recent. Here are a couple of resources that we would like anyone interested to read if you want to learn more about it. At least we learned a lot beside the market research that we did and speaking to publishers, everything that we did to come up with a better consent solution for the gaming industry. Some of them are coming from very, very specialized and very knowledgeable, reputed people like Mobile Dev Memo. Eric Seufert, who is very, very knowledgeable on mobile development and acquisition, but also some game analytics. Didomi, the Didomi consent management platform, is listed on the Game Analytics Toolbox. Some of those are also from vendors, including Adjust in the bottom here, or Branch.io, who have been questioning, or at least trying to question, in which direction the entire industry ecosystem will go in the future. So we definitely would advise you to look at them, or to share other ones if you have. We would be happy to discuss. We would be also happy to send you this presentation by the end if you like. And for this, we would like you to, I'll just move on to the next slide here. We would like you to invite you to contact Antoine who has participated in this webinar, or myself, but Antoine is the first person because he's more knowledgeable than I am about consent management consent management generally, sorry, in games. Antoine Clement, and we would like also to invite you to any other of the 4 masterclasses that we organize. Now, if you want to have access to the Unity SDK, contact Antoine directly, because we wanted to present this during the next webinar, because, sorry, not webinar, masterclass. We will start the next masterclass with giving you access to the Unity SDK. Now, if you want to start, have a head start, you can ask Antoine directly by sending him an email here, if you like, or just ask through the website or anything else. And we would be happy to share the Unity SDK for free, because this is a free program here. And then see if you like it, and we would be happy to answer all your questions about the Unity SDK, the implementation, etc. Is there anything, Antoine, that I have forgot and that you would like to add?
Yeah, maybe if you want some more information, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm going to send you some technical doc. I think it can be always useful if you're working into your apps. And maybe I can announce it now, Yannig. Correct me if I'm wrong. Initially, we plan to open the beta test session on our Unity SDK for the next masterclass. But if there is a kind of emergency, or if you're in a hurry on the subject, don't hesitate to ask me directly, and we're gonna see we're gonna create your trial account earlier than next year. So don't hesitate to ask us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Antoine. Now we are already 45 minutes into the session, so I will not go make it too long. We have had requests from abroad, but also from France. So the technical doc that Antoine has been just briefly mentioning is available in English. So anyone can ask us for this technical doc and for the Unity SDK to implement and try in your game. It will be free. There is no engagement. We are trying to co-create better consent here with the gaming community. We will let you know as soon as it becomes a paid version. There is no sneaky way of selling you something that you have not signed up for. So this is something that we're very transparent about. And that's it. I think then thank you, Antoine, for your time, and then see all of you who attended, if you like, or maybe some new people, in next week's masterclass number 2 about how to set up the Didomi Unity SDK in your game and how to test it.
Thank you very much, all.